Welcome back to the gun dungeon. Today we're going to get a little bit nerdy. So as you can see on the table here and from the thumbnail, we've got 4 AR-15s out here. 2 of which are in 5.56 223, the other 2 are in 300 Blackout. We have 1 of each in a 16-inch barrel and 1 of each in a 10.5-inch barrel. The reason for this video is I've seen multiple times on either gun forums. If you're not a member of the High Road, highly recommend you go over to the highroad.org gun forum. Excellent place to be, a lot of information. But on gun forums or in YouTube comments, people saying things along the lines of 300 Blackout is only useful in a suppressor situation, or 300 Blackout is obsolete, or 223 is better than 300 Blackout in all forms. So we're just going to put that to the test today. I don't know, either way, I could be dead wrong. I think that 300 Blackout has its place. Matter of fact, the 16-inch barrel AR here that you see on the table is what my daughter deer hunts with, but I'm not using that load. That's a 110 grain load. What we are going to be using though is this 125 grain. This is a Spear TNT hollow point bullet. This is a hand load. This is nothing above max pressure, nothing like that. And we're going to be using a 55 grain soft point hand load 223. The reason I'm using these 2 bullets, one is because I know that these are good performing rounds. I made them myself. Anyways, and the bullet weights are somewhat in the middle ground. I wouldn't want to use a 110 grain monolithic bullet, which is what my daughter uses to hunt with, and put it against a 55 grain, because the 110 grain is going to be light for caliber, 55 is going to be middle of the road. So we're not using any 40 grainers or anything like that to pump up velocities or numbers with the 223, and we're not using 110s to pump up velocities with the 300 Blackout, and we're definitely not using the 200 to 220 grain bullets in 300 Blackout, because those are essentially 45 ACP ballistics. But like I said, we have these 2 rounds, middle of the road rounds, hand loads, nothing above published data. Anybody that hand loads can make these. A lot of ammo manufacturers make these same weight bullets at these same velocities, nothing special. So we're going to run the 16-inch barrels. We're going to do some chronograph data. Then I'm going to get nerdy. We're going to crunch the numbers, and we're going to do the same thing with the 10.5-inch barrels, and we're going to see what it comes out to. Let's see if the 300 Blackout is obsolete. So without further ado, I'm going to get the chronograph rolling, get some footage up there. Hopefully you can see it. The light's not great today, so it's a little bright for the chronograph. We'll see if it works, and we'll get going. Okay, so I have 3 of the 5.56 rounds loaded in this mag. That's what we're going to be working off of, is 3 shot averages. Let me just say before we get going, normally I would never be shooting 300 Blackout and 223 at the same time, just because I have seen somebody load a 300 Blackout round into a 223 and pull the trigger, and I've seen what happens. It is a pretty catastrophic failure. But I'm going to take my time. I'm going to be careful. I'm going to make sure I'm loading the right ammunition into the right guns, and hopefully everything will come out okay. So this is my 5.56. This is 5.56 223 rounds. Let's go. $29.17. Duplicate, $29.17, but it did tell us duplicate, so it probably is a duplicate. $28.98. All right, let's try 3 shots of 300 Blackout in a 16-inch barrel. All right, I grabbed the average off the chronograph, reset it. I have 3 rounds, 300 Blackout in my 16-inch. Well, my daughter's 16-inch 300 Blackout. Let's put these through the chrono. $22.90. 23.10. 23.06. All right, let me grab those averages. We'll go to the 10.5 inchers. All right, I've got my 10.5 inch 223 556 loaded up with 223 556. Oh. Clear that out so our averages will come up. All right, so here we go. $25.94. $24.69. $25.88. Let's grab those averages. All right, last but not least, I have my 300 Blackout 10.5 inch loaded with 125 grain 300 Blackout. This is my travel gun when I'm on the road, by the way. Here we go. 2048. 2026. Error. Cool. I've got another round in my pocket. Another error. I don't have any more rounds out here with me. We'll just average those two. You get the idea. All right, this is where we're going to get a little bit nerdy. So I have all the data here. This is the 223 column. This is 300 Blackout column. So in the 16 inch 223, we had 2,910 feet per second. With a 55 grain bullet, that is 1,034 foot-pounds of energy. 16 inch, we had 2,302 feet per second average. With a 125 grain bullet, that is 1,471 foot-pounds of energy. So at the muzzle, 300 Blackout does produce more energy in a 16 inch barrel using these two bullet weights. Now, like I said, if you go changing bullet weights, throw a 200 grain to 220 grain in that 300 Blackout, lower those velocities, you're gonna lose a lot of energy. But with what we've got here, and like I said, neither bullet is on the extreme low or extreme high spectrum as far as bullet weights. I think this is pretty fair. 10.5 inch barrel, 223. We had 2,550 feet per second average. That comes to 794 foot-pounds of energy. So you're below that 1,000 foot-pounds of energy mark at the muzzle of a 10.5 inch barrel 223. That comes out to 65.45 feet per second per inch of barrel loss. So over here, 10.5 inch barrel 300 Blackout, 2,037 feet per second average, 1,152 foot-pounds of energy. To me, that is a substantial difference between these two. This comes out to 48.18 feet per second per inch of barrel loss. So what I'm getting at here is 300 Blackout is definitely not obsolete. 300 Blackout is definitely not underpowered, especially in comparison with a 223. Now, let me say this. Everything has a caveat, Paul Harrell says. You start getting out to longer ranges, you're going to have more advantages with the 223, in my opinion, because you do start out with higher velocities, and your bullet's just going to, it's going faster. It's going to be going faster at distance. 300 Blackout uses a pretty large bullet for the amount of powder that it has, and that large bullet, most of the time in 125 grain, 110 grain type bullets, you have a very low ballistic coefficient, so it will lose velocity fairly quick. So we're just looking at the muzzle here. So with that being said, within 100 yards, maybe even 200 yards, I think the 16 inch 300 Blackout does a little better. But when you get to the 10.5 inch barrel lengths, you gain a lot by having a 300 Blackout over your 223 or 5.56, and right here is why. 300 does better in shorter barrels because of this feet per second per inch of barrel loss being that much lower. This uses more of a handgun type powder, a Magnum handgun powder, which burns quite a bit faster than what your 223 loadings do using a actual rifle powder, which burns slower, which means you need more barrel length to get the efficient burn of that powder. So you don't lose as much by dropping this far as you do with the 223 or 5.56. So now that I've bored you to death with the nerdy part and we've talked about the advantages and disadvantages, like I said, yeah, 300 Blackout is great suppressed. 223, not so much. You get a 223 in subsonic, you're looking at a 22 long rifle pretty much. 300 Blackout at least gives you like 45 ACP ballistics with a 220 grain bullet. So it does excel there. But in my opinion, it also excels when you're trying to get a short, handy pistol and you want some oomph to go with it. The 300 Blackout just excels over the 5.56. And in the case of my daughter hunting with a 16-inch, you take that 16-inch, put a 110 grain copper bullet in it, and load that thing up to close to max velocities, max pressures, and it's a very efficient hunting cartridge. She's taken 2 large-bodied bucks with it with full pass-throughs, no problems, and it does great. And you know, in the woods deer hunting, 16-inch barrel is still considered a fairly short rifle. So that's all I got for you today. I hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, don't forget to hit like and subscribe. Now let's get the argument started down in the comments. Till next time, guys, stay tuned.